All right, we're going to talk a little bit about negotiations. This is kind of a fun and exciting topic because it automatically begins with the fact that you have been offered a job, which is the whole goal of this particular course. So when you get to this phase, you guys can celebrate. It's important to know what you need to do with negotiations because you are expected to negotiate even in an entry level position. So let's talk about some of the ways that you will need to tackle negotiations. First up, we're going to talk about some frequently considered questions. Things like when can you bring up salary? How do you even answer the salary question? Oftentimes that comes up even during the application process. What is the employer's approach? If we know what they're doing, then we can counter that in a productive way. How do you actually negotiate? And then what types of things can you negotiate? Because there's more than just salary on the table. So we'll answer each of those questions throughout this presentation. First up, what can you expect in a negotiation discussion? It should come up at the final round of your interview when they offer you the position, but of course, we know that it will come up at any point during the interview process. Oftentimes, we're seeing salary questions even come up on the application. So you might be asked, what was the salary at your last position? So while they are able to talk about it at any point, it's really important for you to remember that you only talk about it when it's first brought up by them. Always have a plan when you're asked that particular question so that you can answer it in a researched and smart way. You can do some homework through lots of different websites, things like payscale.com, salary.com, glassdoor.com, LinkedIn. If you know somebody at the company and you're able to get some inside information, then that will be helpful. The trick is to always ask for more than you can expect to get. So if you start out high and they start out low, then eventually you'll meet in the middle. If your offer is too low, you can go ahead and cite a range with some negotiating space. So say something like, I was expecting something closer to the going rate near, and then put that particular amount in. Remember to give a rate that's about 110 to 130% higher than what you're offered. Again, you'll kind of back down from your figure and they will come up from theirs to reach a positive solution in the end. So from the employer's perspective, they are trying to get a deal. Remember, you are a product, and just like any consumer, we like to get a good deal. So that's what the employer is trying to do. They are trying to make sure that they land an employee who will do the best job for them at a really great rate. So just remember, you can go ahead and anticipate that they're going to do that. We don't want to over negotiate, however. If they're going to save money, they will, but we will definitely be able to do it in a non-defensive way so that it can be a positive outcome. Also, remember that if you're an intern, you are often likely going to be offered that position. Remember, they've poured in lots of time and effort into training you, and so they'd love to be able to turn that into a full-time position. So be aware that you may be extended a full-time offer at the end of your internship. So what can you expect in a negotiation? The first thing is that there are two major steps. The planning step, where you do some research and you strategize what you're going to do. Also, make sure you practice your poker face. It's really important that you go in and you don't convey any emotion or feeling that may inevitably harm you. And of course, the next step is the communication, where you exchange back and forth and they present an offer and you present something back. So two major steps. Just don't forget the initial planning step. It's crucial to this process. Let's watch a short video.
If the thought of negotiating gives you more dry mouth than a hangover, you are not alone. According to Salary.com, 18% of people never negotiate their salaries, and another 44% only negotiate occasionally. Negotiating your first job offer is particularly important. Believe it or not, increasing your initial salary offer by just $5,000 can result in an extra $500,000 in earnings over the course of your career. How's that for motivation? The top 3 reasons people avoid negotiating are fear of losing the job offer, not knowing how to negotiate, and lack of confidence. Let's take these one by one. If you're afraid of losing the job offer by asking for more money, it's important to realize your future employer expects you to negotiate. So by not speaking up, you may very well lose credibility in the office. There is no one magic number when it comes to salaries. Employees are paid within a certain range. Employers, rightfully so, offer on the low end of the range, and it's up to you to make sure you end up on the high end of the range. You won't lose a job offer by asking for a higher salary, but you also probably won't get exactly what you request. The key is to settle on a number that both sides feel happy about. Developing the negotiation skills you need takes research and practice. It's important to approach the conversation honestly, with sound numbers to back up your request. You can find out what the appropriate salary range is for your position by using websites like salary.com and payscale.com. Be reasonable and resolute when discussing an increase with your employer, but also be ready to find common ground. It helps to put yourself in their shoes. Try to effectively communicate how much value you will add to the company and why it's worth it to pay you a little extra. Before you talk to your boss, practice with a friend or in front of a mirror. Making eye contact and not saying too much can go a long way. If you need extra help, there are plenty of excellent books on negotiation you can use to hone your skills. The only way to feel more confident negotiating is to do it. It never hurts to ask. The more times you attempt to negotiate, the easier it will become. But don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. For The Street, I'm Lauren Lyons-Cole.
Okay, those are some really handy tips to remember when negotiating. I would emphasize that they are expecting you to negotiate, so definitely be prepared. So during the planning stage of negotiation, you want to consider several things. You want to consider the company factors. So is this a small company? Is it a larger company? Is it a government run company where they have particular steps and you won't be able to negotiate outside of those steps? Is there a company factor that they're facing? Maybe the company is on a hiring freeze, or they're replacing somebody that recently left. These can all be things that you can leverage for negotiation, and will let you know how much to press and how much to kind of lay off. You also want to consider external factors. It is key that you make sure that you are taking a job that you can cover all of your major expenses. So what's the cost of living? Are there moving expenses? Are there transportation issues that you might have to worry about? So consider those external factors and remember your salary needs to reflect that. Obviously, living in New York City is going to cost a lot more than living in Columbia, South Carolina. So have you considered that in your salary offer? If you need an idea of research some salary ranges, you are welcome to look at payscale.com. Again, we've mentioned a lot of these: LinkedIn, salary.com, or even the industry guides. These will give you a good idea of where people fall on that particular scale. And then you can look at your experience and what you can bring to the table to match up where you think you would fall within that scale. Remember to think about your marketing materials and your skills, your level of education, your training and certifications, how much experience you bring to the table. Those particular things are all worth more salary. So you want to make sure that you match up a particular figure with what you're bringing to the table, and then leverage those things during your discussion. So during the communication stage of the negotiations, remember, overall, we want to keep it friendly and non-confrontational. It should be win-win for everybody. You're convincing them that you are bringing value to the table and to their company, and that they will be benefiting from what you have to bring. So remember not to take it personally, and again, keeping a straight face and good eye contact, as well as not talking a whole lot, will help benefit you in this particular situation. So first, focus on the base salary, and then you can consider some other things in your compensation package. And I will show you a really great graphic that will give you some ideas on other things to negotiate. With each position, you'll want to make a counter offer and then strengthen your position based on your skills and experience moving forward. So they're going to give you a salary expectation and you'll negotiate. And then you might talk about your benefits and what they're offering, and you negotiate. And then in the end, you compromise. Remember, we're not going back and forth with each little nitty-gritty detail. You want to make sure you have an ultimate goal of the things that you want and get to that particular level with a positive attitude. So here's the negotiation wheel. This is crucial to remember that there are lots of other things to negotiate despite base salary. So when you encounter a negotiation that necessarily isn't going positively and they say, gosh, well, that's all we can offer you, then it's time for you to throw some other things on the table, okay? Do remember with your base salary that you need to take about 28% of that out for taxes. Yes, Uncle Sam and the local governments have to be paid. So you'll want to make sure that that bottom figure that you're left with is reasonable enough for you to live off of. You want to also consider your health benefits. Guys, it is important that you have a job that offers you health benefits. You cannot live on your parents' insurance forever. Things happen. You will need to go to the doctor or get routine dental care. So make sure that you have a wide ranging and full covering health benefits package. You also want to consider some company perks. Can they throw in stocks? Do they have free food or gas, especially if you are sales and you're traveling around? Do they have a per diem? Are they paying for your gas? Have they thrown in a company car for you to rent? Is there a phone that they're allowing to use, or even a computer that you're using for your work? Are there company discounts? Do you get a certain percentage off of the product that your company is selling? So really good company perks to consider, especially again, if you're sales and you're utilizing your own personal vehicle or hotel room, things of that nature. You'll want to make sure that those are covered. Don't forget about retirement and investment plans. I know all of you, especially my finance majors, know that if you start investing now, your future will be well taken care of. But the more you put it off, the harder it will be to get to a certain level before you retire. So start throwing in some money toward retirement, see if they have a matching investment plan, and figure that out now, especially as you're just starting off. You also want to consider paid time off. Is there vacation or sick leave? What is it that they have a standard on in terms of their particular HR department? Then you'll also want to think about bonuses. Is there a performance-based bonus or a holiday bonus or a sign-on bonus? Can you negotiate that in your package? One of my favorite things to think about is education, especially at this level. Many of you want to continue with an MBA or other graduate work. Guys, those things cost money. So work for a couple of years and then ask the company if they pay for professional development, for MBA programs, for additional training or certifications. Many of those certifications can cost quite a bit of money. So see if your company will be able to sponsor those for you. And then you will bring that particular information back to their company to add value. And then finally, you're always welcome to negotiate your performance cycle. Perhaps you are on a 1-year kind of contract or look and see, and then at the end of that particular year, you would be able to renegotiate your benefits and base salary. So that's a good one to negotiate. And then your last one is relocation expenses. You may not own a whole lot of stuff now, but you'll slowly start accumulating things, and it costs money. It costs money to rent a temporary housing. It costs money to move or to hire movers for you. If you're putting a house up for sale or finding a house for sale, you'll need a realtor. So make sure that you consider a lot of those relocation expenses, especially as you continue on in your career. Lots of wonderful things to negotiate, so don't just stop at the base salary. Okay, I want to look at an example of how to negotiate. This is a really great positive way to show that you're adding value to the company.
So let's say now that I have just, in this scenario, you have no other competing offers, and I've just made you an offer for $50,000. So Justin, here's the offer, and our salary is $50,000.
Well, first I just want to say I'm very excited about the role. I think first and foremost, I want to be here. this is the job that I want. Now, with that said, I think that the experience that I bring to the table, the value that I've been able to demonstrate in my prior roles warrants a much higher salary than $50,000. In terms of my own research regarding this particular role at this company and other companies, what I've actually seen is that there's a range of more like 45,000 to 65,000, and I think that given my experience, given the success that I've been able to have in prior roles, which I believe I'm going to bring to this role as well, that I deserve to be at the higher end of that range. So my aspiration is to actually be at 65,000.
Well, I appreciate that, and as you know, we'd love to have you. Unfortunately, the economy is just really tough, and there's not much I can really do about that. So, that's pretty much the situation right now with this economy.
Yeah. And I totally get that. I think that at the end of the day, I would look at this like an investment. Right? Are you going to invest $50,000 with someone who's going to be able to double your money, or if you were to pay $65,000, you're going to be working with someone who's going to be able to triple, quadruple, or many times improve that return. And the work that I've done in the past, I think it's the same thing. Like oftentimes, we've been told, your price point's too expensive. But at the end of the day, it's the return on that price point. And I think that compared to other candidates, I'm going to be able to more than make up that $15,000 difference.
Okay, I mean, you do make a case. So I just was able to actually check with my manager, and we're able to be slightly flexible on that rate. We had quoted you 50, and I know you brought up a range, and so I'm able to offer you 57. Mm-hmm. Would that be acceptable?
One other thing which we didn't talk about is some of the other modes of compensation. So, stock options, bonus. Would it be appropriate to talk about some of those? Because while 57 is better than the 50 that you offered, it's still not, given my research, what I think that I deserve in this role. And so if there's more flexibility, understanding that you guys may be constrained from a budgetary perspective right now, if there's more flexibility around stock or options or bonus at the end of the year,
sure, we
I'd
can
be
talk
happy
about
to discuss that.
Let's discuss that. So on stock options, we are flexible. We've offered you 20,000 options, and we're able to actually extend that number with the understanding that you are a top candidate. So we are pleased to be able to offer you 40,000 options, mm-hmm. and that actually doubles the number originally. Now, as you know, we can't promise where the stock is going to go, but we think that that's a very compelling offer.
Sure. I think that goes a long way to closing the gap, and I really appreciate your flexibility there, because I am committed to this role, and I think options are a great way for you guys to demonstrate that you're committed to me, and for me to demonstrate that I'm committed to you. The one other thing that I would love to talk about is, what would the review cycle be for my performance in terms of evaluating my candidacy for a promotion or a raise? Because while I understand right now we're going through some tough times, what I would love to do is, my understanding is it tends to be a year, but could we have an accelerated review cycle after 6 months to potentially repeg my salary to a level that is more commensurate with, I think, the experience that I'm bringing to the table here?
We normally don't do that, but in this case, you've been flexible, and I think we've come to a fair agreement for both of us. So yeah, I can speak to the hiring manager, and we can certainly do a 6-month review cycle. And with that said, that's pretty much the best I can do. Would that work for you?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
So that was a great example of how to do a non-confrontational salary negotiation. He kept it positive, and he continued to press that his experience at the table brings a lot more value. So be sure to continue to do that, okay? So what do you not do in a negotiation? You don't accept on-the-spot offers, and you don't over-negotiate. Those two things are pretty critical. You also want to make sure that you look at sample salary negotiations. And if you want to pause the video, you're welcome to look at this one and read it through. It's another example just like the one that we watched, and it's a really great way to figure out how to kind of tightrope through those sticky situations. And this is the end of that particular negotiation offer and what it sounds like. So again, make sure you pause the video and look that over. Finally, you have your new position, it's well negotiated, and you have your compensation package. Just a couple of things that you want to remember in the end. Make sure your offer letter, it has these particular things in writing. You want to make sure the start date is there, that your schedule is there, your title, the compensation that you're receiving. All of these particular items need to be written down in that offer letter, and you should have a copy of it. And then finally, don't forget to check in the employee handbook and for the website for their particular policies. What kind of things do they have written down in their HR manual that you need to know about? Also, be sure to check with them regarding any pre-planned time off that you had already negotiated. For instance, lots of students have an upcoming wedding or they had something planned prior to being hired. You may have talked about that during the interview process, and you need to make sure you check on that before you officially begin. And then, of course, you want to make sure when your insurance starts and stops, are there any fees that you have to pay if you stop early or you end up transferring somewhere else? You don't want to lapse in coverage as you go along. The last thing I want to let you guys know is that it is the ethical issues that you may face when negotiating particular positions. I guess I want to let you know that it is unethical for you guys to take an offer and accept that offer and then go ahead and say that you can't do it because you want to take another position. So once you give an affirmative answer to a company that says, I would love to accept this position, then you are locked in. It is unethical for you to take that out. Now you can continue negotiating with them and say, gosh, I'm considering another offer from a different company. Can I have another 24 hours or 48 hours to consider your offer? And that might put some pressure on them to offer you a bigger package. But you cannot accept a position and then take yourself out of that position because you want to go to a different job. So just keep that in mind. There are ethical issues when you have lots of different job offers on the table. All right, you guys are all set for negotiation now, and now you guys will have your wonderful jobs, and you'll be off your mom's couches, and you'll be ready to take in lots and lots of money.